Hi, I'm Evelyn Garrett from Max Solutions. Today we're talking about adapting to change in the workplace. So today we're talking about adapting to change in the workplace. This is designed to be an interactive workshop, so do take notes if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how you can thrive within the workplace when change comes to you. Just as an overview, we'll be talking about understanding how change affects us. We'll talk about the transitions that we go through when change occurs, looking at our emotional reactions and different coping mechanisms as well. So I have some slides that you're welcome to download. Do follow along because this will give you a bit of a structure of what we're talking about. The first one, we will be focusing on understanding how change affects us, the transitions that we go through when change occurs, looking at our emotional reactions and different coping mechanisms as well. I would like to also say that I'll be talking a little bit about the sorts of things that we actually experience when we go through change, and also how this can affect your business as well. This particular workshop is for small business owners, so it's designed to help you to have confidence so that you can manage yourself and also the life of your business also. So change is not always a bad thing. It's important for our businesses to adapt when change comes to us. The world changes and it evolves, and so we need to adjust to that also. Sometimes as well, we as individuals may come to varying challenges within our lives, and so we also need to adapt as well. And the organisation, it actually needs to change in order to survive within the market too. So there are some reasons why businesses do need to evolve. There might be particular challenges of growth, there might be a change in strategy, you might review your business plan and might need to adjust to a few different things. Technology advancements can also impact on business. Do you remember those the floppy drives as well? You know, the small little ones. To me, that is like the picture of, well, if you don't adapt, you cannot use computers. So sometimes technology changes and it has a huge impact on the way that we do our business. Sometimes also consumer pressure as well can make for the need to change business as well, so demands might change, and also government legislation and initiatives as well can impact on the way that we do our business. So if we don't change and incorporate those sorts of things, you can't operate. I guess one of the examples that I can think of recently, we're in September 2020, we've just had COVID-19 and we're still within that. As businesses, we've all had to change. We've all had to have our COVID-19, COVID-safe plans in place, and if you don't have these together, then you can't operate. So that's a pretty good example. So we'll move on to another slide. This one just says that the rate of change is not going to stop. It's not going to slow down at any time. So it's important that we as industries can adapt. It's just change is the constant thing. So what's the difference between change and transition? So change is the external factor that can impact on the business and impact on you. Transition is what we go through to adjust within that change. So this is our response of what we're feeling, what we're thinking, and how we behave. So that's a pretty good definition with that one. One of the challenges with this is that we as people, we like to be on autopilot. We don't really like it when our routines change. We don't really like it when the normal is disrupted. So when change comes to us and we have to adapt, it's challenging. It's very, very challenging. I'm going to talk with you a little bit more about our experience of going through that transition phase to give you an understanding. If you have recently experienced high levels of distress because of COVID, for instance, there's just a few things in here that will just help you to know that what you're going through is okay. It's all okay, and it's all very normal. And as a global scale, we're all going through this too. Okay, so there is a phase. There's a phase going through the transition that we all go through. We all experience. The initial phase is the separation. It's the letting go of what was, the familiar, the things that we were most comfortable with. And then the next phase that we go through is the transition phase. And this is when we recognise that change is here and something's got to change because the existing, it's just not working anymore, or we're not able to continue in a certain way. So that transition phase is looking at what can come with us and what do we need to put in place to create a new normal, and then all of that becomes incorporated. This is how you know that there's a bit more stabilisation. There's an adjustment period that you'll have to go back through this phase. It's not exactly a linear process, even though it's sort of, the slide shows that it goes from one to another, but it's not like that. It's a whole process. So the next slide, I just wanted to talk with you about the stages of the transition. So for us initially there is a denial phase. This is where you kind of think, well, it just can't be happening. There's a bit of disbelief that something so huge, or even something quite small, is in a sense, it's challenging the normal that we have. So there's the denial that we go through. Then we go through a bit of resistance. A few different feelings that you might experience could be anger, loss. There might be some bargaining. Oh, if only I could try something else, and then maybe I don't have to change. That's a clear sign that there might be a bit of resistance, that the change is here and that people may not want to be adapting. The next phase will be looking at exploring, so thinking about what are some of my options, what are other people doing. There might be asking a few more questions about what can be carried through, and then also looking at the commitment. So this is the final commitment to where we've got the new plans in place, and I've refocused my vision. I know where I'm going. I've made some new milestones. There's some new outcomes, and I'm going to try it. I'm going to put it into action. This is the commitment phase. So putting these two overlapping together, there's another slide here that looks at the change grid. This is the 4 stages of the transition. So we have the separation part, the transition, and the incorporation of all of that. And then also looking at the risks, the past, the opportunities, and the future. It's quite interesting how as a community we're starting to go through all of this. So I'm in Queensland, and each of our states are going through this whole phase at different timings because of COVID related stuff. Moving away from COVID though, there are other examples as well of where we actually go through this change every single day. We just probably don't realise that we're making so many different decisions all at once, and going through this letting go of the old, transitioning, and then adapting to something new. This is such a slow way of pulling it apart. This actually helps you to have control, to know that the process is not, it feels like it's spontaneous, but then when you can break it down, it just gives you a bit more confidence to know that you can have a bit of control over this. So I'd like you to do a little bit of reflection now. I've mentioned about COVID before, and I think maybe we could use this as an example. We'll go through, I know I've got my slides here, but I'll show you. This is the one that I'm talking about here. So the change grid. For you, when you first heard about COVID and you were watching on the news, what were some of the things that you experienced? There's the initial phase of shock that people often go through. What did it look like for you? What were some of the emotions that you were feeling? What were some of the thoughts that you were feeling? How was it impacting on you, your family, your whole work, your business, in terms of your engagement with your customers? What was the shock of, oh my gosh, this is unfolding and I don't quite understand? This is often, well, this is the first phase of understanding and being in touch with the change. There's the initial shock and a bit of grief. So then we go down into the next phase down here, into a bit of resistance. This is goes into a bit more depth about the grief as well. So you might notice that there's a lot that's out of your control. You might notice feelings of just feeling quite overwhelmed. For you, what did it look like? Were there certain behaviours that you stopped doing, or that you started doing a little bit more of? Did you notice a bit of a shift as well? There's often a bit of exploration here. This is the next phase that, well, there might be a bit of shift. Maybe the change could be good for me. Maybe I could actually work from home. Maybe there could be a few different possibilities for me. What were some of the things that you went through? Could it be that for some people their work actually increased during that whole time? So there might have been a bit of adapting to, well, now I have to work from home, but how's that going to be? So what were some of the things that you might have gone through? And then at this stage in Queensland, things are starting to open back up and we're starting to develop a new normal. So there's a bit of a new phase in terms of linking in with opportunity and purpose, and you've got a new commitment, there's some new vision that's coming through. How has that evolved? This is the whole process of you going through this transition, leaving what was, creating something that was new, and then incorporating and adapting all of this to something that's, for some of you it might be completely new, for others there might be some things that have carried over. Think also that this could also be something good to reflect on if you have other staff as well. They might have experienced a few other different things and they might be quite stuck in this process. This is also a very normal thing. Change is optional. You don't have to change, you don't have to accept the change. It's a choice that we make. So sometimes people can get quite stuck in this resistant phase. We'll go through a few different things that you can do to support yourself and others if you feel stuck. People who can be stuck in this phase also, they may actually have their own mental health stuff as well, so sometimes that could exacerbate and prolong the timing for actually moving through this whole phase. So you can be mindful of that, and there might be some other things that we could talk about to help a person to go through this whole transition phase. Okay, so how do we react? This next slide talks about our emotional reactions. I've already spoken a little bit about this already. This talks about the experience of depression, anger, nervousness, stress and denial. Again, this would be part of this resistance stuck phase. How I think during change is really important. You can be quite reactive. For people who are reactive, they may tend to overgeneralise or take things personal, might be a bit more pessimistic, have some more black and white thinking, like it's all going to be from something to now nothing. There's nothing in my control, everything's falling apart, and also imagining the worst case scenarios. This could be a really clear sign that someone's quite resistant to this whole side and they're still stuck in, well, this is what was and I do not want to move forward. But again, that's a choice. That's just simply where someone's at. It doesn't mean that there's no need to judge people if they're experiencing that. That's just where they are. And it's important to acknowledge that that's the case. How do we go through the process though and develop resilience? You can't just jump from here over to commitment. It just can't happen. There is a cycle that you have to go through. So to develop your own resilience, there are some very specific things that can be helpful. There's another slide that talks about resilience, and some of the things that you can do is looking at specifically what is the change, what is going on, what am I noticing. Being able to focus on what the issue is really important. Often when change comes, we know what our primary objective is. The primary objective would be, well, this is the product or the service that you deliver as part of your business. But when change comes, there can be secondary tasks that we do. Rather than focusing just on our primary tasks, we can get distracted with this changes here, now I have to fix that. Sometimes within groups as well, this is when there might be, some teething problems, or you might notice there's just a bit of grumbling within the team. I'm not sure how else to say that, but that kind of can happen as a secondary issue because the primary issue has been lost and the focus has been lost. So bringing the team back to what the primary focus is and reminding people about the change and that we're working through the change, that's the problem, not the grumbling issue. This is how you can support the team going through that. Also being optimistic is really important, knowing that even though it may not be completely clear what the final product is going to look like or the outcomes are, having the optimism that we've gone through this whole process lots and lots of times and we've been able to recover every time. This is really important. Being optimistic that there is an end goal and that there's hope is very, very helpful. Also setting expectations and being able to negotiate with people and also with yourself on what your expectations are is important. For some people who are quite stuck in this area, there might be scope to negotiate. Well, if you're not wanting to change here, maybe we can make things a little bit more comfortable, and the one-on-one time can be really, really helpful with that. Also thinking about best and worst case scenarios can be really helpful because then people can plan for best outcome is this, and then contingency plan might be something else. That just makes good business sense as well. So dealing with change and uncertainty, it is challenging, definitely challenging. How we do this is really important too. It's important that you have some pretty clear strategies for yourself of how you adapt to change on a personal level, because this will also impact on your engagement with other people, your engagement with businesses as well. So some things that you can do. You can make sense of what the change is. You can confront the reality. Sometimes having the blankets over our heads, it doesn't help to improve the situation because everything stays the same and you're still stuck in the letting go phase, you're still stuck in the transition phase, and it doesn't feel like anything's going to get better. So sometimes actually seeing it for what it is, I don't know about you, but for me when the COVID stuff was happening, I spent quite a few hours just watching the news just to know, how's this going to impact on me? What can I expect in terms of my workflow? How am I coping as well? So I spent quite a few hours doing that, but then I kind of eased myself into it because I'd been exposed to the horror and the shock. And then we were also making our own plans as well. So recognising the need to actually confront what the change is and clearly define it can make a huge difference to helping you to stay focused. Also accepting mixed feelings and being able to validate how you feel in all of these different phases. So I'll go back to this slide again. When you're going through change, there is often extremes of emotions that people will experience. I've already touched on quite a few in terms of the anger. There's also a lot of sadness as well. There's a lot of grief. There's the letting go phase, which is like a grief anyway. But then you can go from sort of feeling highs and lows. You can feel happy that yes, well, something could change, something good could come of this, but then also feel quite overwhelmed because it's change, there's transition, and it's challenging our autopilot. Normalising your own reactions as well is very, very helpful. what else can I say about this? Tracking your process through change is also good because your new normal is not going to be the same. Obviously, it's not going to be the same. So being able to recognise, am I still on track with some things, and have I been able to let go of other things and still maintain my focus? This can be helpful to actually go through this whole process. Also, because you're setting up new change, setting up new change means that you're actually taking a few risks as well. And when you take risks, sometimes you're not sure if they're going to work out either. So being able to check in with yourself, do I feel like I'm on track? Do I feel comfortable with this? Am I noticing that I'm feeling a bit more confident? Or do I need to review and just go back to this phase again? This will help you to gain a sense of control, a sense of mastery even, while you're developing and learning a lot of new things. Oh, I like this comment. I forgot to say this before. So we cannot change the change. We can change our reaction to the change. We'll talk a bit now about the circles of influence. I use this a lot with a lot of my clients who are really struggling to make some kind of adaptation. I do a lot of personal counselling support through EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, and I also talk with a lot of managers as well, where there might be a few things that have changed within work that's directly impacting on their workflow and their team, and there might be some things that are not in their control but they have concerns about. So I'll just quickly talk with you about the circles of control. I had a lady a couple of days ago, and I said, okay, so just tell me a little bit about what's in your control and what's not in your control. And she was really distressed, and she said, everything. There's just nothing in control. I can't do anything. That everything is out of my control. And I said, okay, so when you say everything, what do you mean? And she said, everything, just everything. And okay, let's write down the word everything. That way we can start to tease out, when you say everything, what do you mean? So she was talking about her work, things have changed. She was talking about her personal relationship, that was changing. She was talking about the parenting stress, that was changing. But we were able to then tease out and work out, well, what are some of the things that you do have control over? So she's in control over the time that she wakes up. She's in control over the way that she responds to these sorts of pressures. She's in control of her relationship with her customers. She's in control of her workflow and how she chooses to fill her day. She can also influence, and this is the green part of this model, she can also influence in talking with the businesses that she's in contact with. She can influence where she is on a priority list if she's talking with suppliers. She worked out then that there were actually a few things that she could do, and all of this was helping her to create the new normal for herself. So she was also then less distressed because she could see that there was a bit of a plan now, and there were things that she could do. So sometimes if you just slow it down, work out what is out of your control, like COVID, for instance. I have no control over who gets sick and if they're near me. But what I do have control over is my personal care, my responsibility, all of that sort of stuff. Okay, now let's have also a talk about group dynamics. Group dynamics is really important for you to know so that you understand the life cycle of your business. This is also part of the change process that we go through quite regularly also. So the group dynamics looks at how a business and projects as well. There's the initial forming stage, storming, norming, performing, and then adjourning. So forming is where you have a bit of a loose idea about what it is that you would like to do, and you have an objective in mind. Storming is where things are starting to sort of become a little bit rattled, and there might be a little bit of conflict. And then there's a readjustment of what it is that, like the way that things are going to be presented as well. So there's a bit of norming then that happens so that people can perform and then build mastery and confidence. Adjourning is where things are finishing and ending. Why do I bring this up? Again, part of the change, I'll just bring back my transition slide. So as a business, you will be going through this whole cycle of group dynamics during any sort of change. Generally, when things are upset within the business plan or the business, this is back to storming. And then the new normal is discussed and options are discussed so that there can be a new level of performance. Back in the storming phase, this can also be quite distressing for people, particularly if you don't have all of the answers, you don't really know what you're doing. So keeping in mind that there are a few different things that are overlapping can be quite helpful to know that everything is not completely fallen apart. It's not all lost. There are a few things that are still in your control and things that you can influence. For instance, going back through the storming stage and working out how you're going to do this is part of what you can influence and also what you can control as well. I hope that this is making sense. Okay, so let's get to some practical things also. Okay, so we'll talk about the 3 C's now, looking at take control, keep connected, and maintain commitment. There are actually 9 C's of resilience. Any guesses for what those 9 might be? I'll read them out anyway. So we've got control, connection, commitment, confidence, creativity, competence, compassion, communication, and collaboration. Rewind if you want to catch them again. But if you keep all of these in mind, this is also what's going to build your own resilience. Okay, so take control. Let's have a talk about that one. Taking control is about you being actively involved and participating with the change. It's actually engaging with it. It's being open to what's happening there and contributing your own ideas as well. This is how you can take control. Then also acting on the plan that you've developed also. So you can be informed. It's important to participate, contribute your ideas, act on what you can control, take up different opportunities, and also look after yourself. Taking up different opportunities can also help you to just have a bit more understanding about perhaps the new levels that you might be able to engage in, and it might actually bring out some different strengths for yourself as well. So then you actually transition into a whole new change, which feels a lot more hopeful and a lot more positive as well. So new opportunities is also change. It's a good thing. Keeping connected is also very, very important for navigating through change. So it's important to talk with other people about change. So directly within the business, you might want to talk with your team about what you're planning to do, what you're hoping to do, and also directly how it will impact on others as well. If you're a sole trader, have a business meeting with yourself, because this will help you to validate everything that you have gone through, and it'll help you to debrief what you might be letting go of and what you're trying to implement as well. Networking is also a great example as well of how you can stay connected as well within your own industry. Provide encouragement to others, to everyone. I don't know about you, but I'm a cheerleader for everyone. I will go into my competitors' businesses and just say, hey, good job. You know, you've done such a good job. This has really been challenging for you as well. Talk about shared responsibility and also get conscientious. So this is just simply about being aware of what other people might be going through, the challenges and also the new things that are emerging as well. Oh, one other thing as well, just on keeping connected. I'm so pleased I have my notes here. Another way to engage with other people is to use a technique called LACE, L-A-C-E. It stands for listen, acknowledge, check and explore. So this could be a great way to really understand, going back to this slide, if people are experiencing resistance, use the LACE technique. This way you can really just work out, well, are there particular things that they might be holding on to that they're not quite sure of how to navigate their way through the next step as well. So now looking at commitment, the third C. This is about you when you have your action plan, putting your energy into the most important areas. I spoke before about how we have our primary task and then sometimes secondary tasks might show up. Bringing back the focus back to the primary task is really important because change is exhausting. There's a lot of learning that people go through, and so if you're already spending a lot of your energy just dealing with your emotional change or your thoughts through all of that, being divided within your business strategy can also be quite taxing on your energy as well. Participate in making the decisions. Again, this is another really important thing to review what you have in place, and then this way you can adapt to little things that might need to be changed as well while you're creating your new plan. Also give encouragement as well. Another thing as well is understanding morale, and that your own state of mind can determine the mood, I guess, of the team and of the project as well. So we can all influence everybody. You actually set the tone for every conversation that you have. So if you can be more mindful and a bit more conscientious about what you're bringing to the conversations, it can make a huge impact on helping people to transition through change. So there are different types of coping mechanisms. We'll talk firstly about the emotion-focused coping. So these strategies would be attempts to actually manage your own emotional distress. So recognising the mood that you might be in. If you notice that you're feeling quite anxious and it spikes quickly, noticing on a scale from 0 to 10 where you experience that anxiety, what it looks like, can be really, really helpful, because change is it's stressful anyway, and so if you can be more aware of how stress impacts on you, then you can regulate your emotions a lot better, so that you can then pull back and calm down, and then you can be thinking a lot clearer. You might notice that if you're experiencing high levels of emotional distress, people, they tend to be crying, or they might be venting or yelling as well. The crying aspect, it's not a bad thing. I have some people that they say that when they get stressed, they could be in a pleasant conversation, then all of a sudden tears will just start rolling down their face. This is also the body's way of supporting you through change. It's supporting you through grief, and it's helping you to let out some of that stagnant energy. So sometimes just stopping, taking some quiet time to just meet with yourself can be very, very helpful to process all of the stuff that's been just sitting there. We'll talk a little bit more about some coping strategies for problem solving. So problem-focused coping. There's an acronym here called PEEPs, P-E-E-P. So this is where you can define what your preferred outcome is. I keep putting this slide down and I keep referring back to it. So this is where you would be defining what your preferred outcome is, and also knowing what some of your other options are, the contingencies as well. Know what your expectations are to the problem. So actually not feeling as though you're subject to it, and knowing how to respond within that as well is very important. Utilise your existing resources and recognising the process made so far. So we'll talk again about some more problem-focused coping strategies, and this is another acronym called MAPS. So looking at generating multiple options, asking how rather than why, turn problems into platforms for solutions, and use small, smart steps. So I'll just go through a couple of those a little bit more. So asking how rather than why. When you ask why, it's a very, it kind of gets you stuck in, well, why does this keep happening? How will help you to create strategies and steps going through it. So how will I get through this? Turning problems into platforms for solutions is something that I always love to do with my clients. So they might have a problem that they don't know what they're doing, like they don't know the next steps to do. Well, even in saying that, they've then actually created a goal. My next goal is to create steps for myself. So it's just about, it's a bit of a word game that you can use for yourself. Using small, smart steps. Do you know what SMART stands for? Anybody know? So S is for making it specific, and here I am looking down at my notes. I just want to make sure. So S is for specific. M is make sure that the goal is measurable. A is to be achievable. Is it definitely something that you can do, and is it attainable? R is it has to be relevant, it's got to be realistic, it definitely has to make an impact, and T is for time bound as well. So creating some of these small smart goals can be a great way to actually adapt through the change as well. So we'll go on to some self-care and resilient strategies. So there are a lot of things. Even though all of this chaos and change is going on, your self-care is very, very important. You are the driving force behind your business and your vision as well. So your own health is very, very important. So some examples so you can put work into perspective. Know that work is one aspect of your life. Work is not you. Your business is not you, even though sometimes it feels like it is. Your business is actually, it's a third entity. It is a whole new part of who you are, and it's a life of its own. Sometimes our business, it grows way too quickly, sometimes than what we're ready for, and so we have to adapt and change with that as well. But your business is separate to you. So sometimes keeping perspective is really helpful, making sure that there is time when you don't think about work. That's important. Being connected with your family, being connected with yourself, just taking a step back is really important. There are some other things here on this slide too, talking about the importance of play and learning new things, spending quality time with other people, taking both short and extended periods away from your business, like having a holiday. It can do a world of good. It can help you to just be refreshed and come back with new ideas as well. Being kind to yourself it's a daily practice that is important for you to do, so that you can remember that you are here. You are here. And connecting with yourself is very, very important. Also exercising. It's great for your body, it's great for your mental health. Eating well is also important, and also having sleep as well. They say between 7 to 9 hours or 10 hours a night helps you with optimal performance the following day as well. What else can I share with this as well? Sometimes even just having another perspective about your own health can be important. Engaging with your GP, talking with a mental health counsellor, psychologist, social worker, connecting with the AP could be a great way for you to both talk about your business stuff, but also how everything might be impacting on you as well. So maybe that could be helpful too. A few other things as well. There's the SEEDS concept. I've recorded another video that talks about SEEDS, the acronym. It stands for staying social connected, exercising, education, and the importance of learning new skills, diet and sleep as well. So SEEDS is a great way to remember some of those things. Learning how to relax is also really, really important. That's kind of just a follow-on from the slide that I've just spoken about. Correct breathing is important to know. I mean, is there a right or wrong way to breathe? You sort of breathe in, breathe out. For meditative and relaxed breathing, it's best to do the diaphragm breathing. I know that I'm breathing correctly if I hold my hands like this on my stomach, and if I breathe in, my hands will expand a little, and then breathing out, they'll come back together. That's how I know that I'm taking a full deep breath, not a shallow breath. This can be really helpful as well with people who experience anxiety or panic attacks. If you can breathe down through and breathe out, have the focus on the out breath, this can be really helpful to just calm those nerves and help all of that energy to cycle through properly. And then there are some other mindfulness strategies as well. Mindfulness is an amazing thing. You can do it anywhere, anytime, if you know what it is. So mindfulness is really just being very conscious of your current state right now as it is. So if you're on the other side of this, sitting in a nice comfortable couch, it's about knowing what you're connected to, being fully present to the feeling of the couch or the feeling of the chair, feeling your feet in your shoes. Some other examples too, if you're in a kitchen and you're cooking, rather than your mind racing or your mind wandering to something completely different, stay focused in the kitchen. If you're cutting up carrots, you can be mechanical in a sense and kind of say to yourself, I'm cutting up carrots right now, this is what I'm doing. Feel the coldness of the carrots, feel the weightiness of the knife. Or if you're washing up as well, feel the water. Notice the water on the outside of your hands, notice the water inside your body. That's fully mindful. It's just being fully present. Using your 5 senses is really, really great. So sometimes if people experience a lot of anxiety when they're at a shopping centre, one of the strategies, contrary to what a lot of people do, if they experience anxiety, they want to run away. Sometimes if you actually can sit down and slow down and actually take in the information, you might actually be able to get through it. This is not personal advice, but for some people that can be helpful to know that they can be fully present and mindful within themselves, and then get through that way. So if you have any questions about anything that I've spoken about, going back to this transition phase, or if you're finding that some people might be a little stuck, or you yourself might be feeling a little stuck either through the change directly related to COVID or any other type of change that you might be going through, please contact me. please call us. We have counsellors on our EAP team. There's also Lifeline Beyond Blue. For those of you who might be needing a bit of extra support, there's also the suicide callback service as well that you're welcome to contact. And stay connected as well with your group of people. This is one of the best ways to actually get through change. So just as a quick summary, what we've spoken about today is understanding what change is and how it affects us, understanding the transition of change that we all go through, being able to connect with our emotions and our thoughts and how we react to things and how we actually go through that process. We've spoken about some different coping mechanisms as well, and some different self-care strategies also. So yes, do contact me if you're interested in connecting. Yeah, and we'll talk another time. Okay, take care. Bye.